Have you ever stopped for a moment and asked yourself why your life feels like it's moving but not changing? You wake up, you go through the same motions, you tell yourself things will improve, yet deep inside something feels stuck, almost invisible, like you're running fast on a treadmill that never leads anywhere. And the strange part is, no one around you may even notice it, but you feel it, that quiet pressure, that frustration you don't always talk about. The sense that you are capable of more, but somehow living less than what you imagine. This is not laziness, and it is not lack of intelligence. It is something deeper, a disconnect between who you are and who you know you could become. And that gap, it doesn't close by itself. Most people try to fix this feeling with temporary escapes. A scroll here, a distraction there, a short burst of motivation that fades before the day even ends. But the feeling always returns, stronger than before, because avoidance never solves identity. There is a truth most people don't want to face. Your life is not controlled by what you want in your best moments. It is controlled by what you tolerate in your weakest ones. And right now, those weak moments are quietly shaping everything. But here is where something changes. Because the moment you become aware of this pattern, you are no longer trapped in it. Awareness is not comfort. It is pressure. It forces honesty. And honesty is where transformation begins. You don't need more inspiration. You don't need another reset plan. What you need is to understand the system you've been unconsciously living inside. A system built from habits, reactions, and decisions you stopped questioning a long time ago. And the reason it feels so hard to change is not because change is impossible. It is because your current identity is comfortable in its own limitations. It knows how to survive, but not how to evolve. So every time you try to grow, it pulls you back into what feels familiar. But there is something powerful hidden in that struggle. The same mind that created your current life is the same mind that can rebuild it completely. Nothing outside needs to change first. The shift starts internally, in how you respond to yourself when no one is watching. And if you stay with this realization long enough, something begins to shift quietly. You stop looking for quick relief. You start looking for control. Not over everything around you, but over the one thing that actually determines your direction, your own behavior. Because once you see that clearly, you can never fully return to ignorance again. And in that moment, the possibility of a different life stops being abstract. It becomes something you can actually step toward, one decision at a time. And what most people never realize is that change doesn't fail in one dramatic moment. It fails in the small, invisible moments when you choose comfort over control. That is where lives are actually decided, not in big speeches or sudden breakthroughs, but in the quiet seconds where no one is watching and you still choose who you are becoming. Every action you repeat is casting a vote for your identity. Every excuse you accept is reinforcing the version of you that stays the same. And every disciplined response, no matter how small, is rebuilding you from the inside out. There is no perfect timing for transformation. There is only repetition. And repetition either destroys you or constructs you. So when you feel resistance, it is not a sign to stop. It is a sign that something inside you is being rewritten. That resistance is the old version of you trying to survive. And if you keep moving through it, even slowly, even imperfectly, you begin to notice something powerful. The life that once felt out of reach starts responding differently. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Because you did. And once that realization lands, even slightly, something inside you stops negotiating with your old life. It starts questioning everything you once accepted without thinking. The habits, the delays, the silent compromises you kept repeating because they felt harmless in the moment. But nothing about them is harmless anymore, not once you see the pattern. Because awareness changes responsibility. You cannot unknow what you now understand. And that creates pressure. A pressure that doesn't come from the world, but from within you. And this is where most people hesitate. They feel that pressure and try to escape it. They return to comfort, distractions, anything that softens the discomfort of truth. But you are already past that point, because now you see the cost of staying the same. And that cost builds every single day. Every ignored goal becomes heavier. Every postponed action becomes louder in your mind. Not as thoughts, but as tension. A quiet reminder that your life is waiting for a version of you that keeps delaying its arrival. And here is what you must understand clearly. Change is not a dramatic event. It is a confrontation. A daily confrontation between who you are now and who you refuse to remain. And the longer you avoid that confrontation, the stronger the resistance becomes inside you. At some point, motivation becomes irrelevant. You stop waiting to feel ready, because readiness was never the requirement. Repetition was. Action was. Even when it feels uncomfortable. Especially when it feels uncomfortable. This is where discipline stops being an idea and becomes a survival system. Not something you practice when life is easy, but something you rely on when everything inside you wants to stop. And that is the real difference between knowing and becoming. Because knowing is passive, becoming is active. Becoming demands proof. And that proof is built in the smallest moments, when no one is watching and nothing is forcing you except your own decision. You will notice something strange as you enter this phase. The old version of you does not disappear. It resists, it whispers, it tries to negotiate. It tells you that you can start again later, that one break won't matter. But it always matters. Because identity is not shaped in big decisions. It is shaped in repeated permissions. And every permission you give to weakness strengthens it. Every refusal weakens it, until one side becomes dominant. Not by accident, but by accumulation. This is why consistency is not just a habit. It is a form of self-definition. You are constantly telling your brain who you are through what you repeat. Not what you plan, not what you intend, but what you actually do when resistance shows up. And slowly, something shifts. The struggle does not vanish, but your reaction to it changes. You stop treating discomfort as a warning sign. You start treating it as confirmation that you are moving away from your old self. That is when real transformation begins to stabilize. Not in sudden breakthroughs, but in quiet control. In the ability to stay aligned even when nothing feels exciting. Especially then, because excitement fades, but structure remains. And structure is what carries you when emotion cannot. And if you continue long enough in this direction, you reach a point where discipline is no longer something you try to maintain. It becomes something you protect, because you start to understand what happens without it. Drift, delay, regret. And now you are no longer willing to return there. Not because you fear failure, but because you have seen what consistency begins to build. A version of you that does not rely on temporary energy. A version that operates with direction, even in silence. And once that version starts to form, everything around you begins to respond differently. Not because the world changed overnight, but because you finally stopped living like someone who is waiting for permission to change. And once you stop living like someone who is waiting for permission to change, everything starts to shift in ways you did not expect. Not loudly, not instantly, but permanently. Because now your actions are no longer reactions. They are decisions. And decisions repeated daily begin to harden into identity. This is the point where most people underestimate what is happening inside them. They think they are still trying, but in reality, they are already transforming. You start to notice your mind resisting old patterns differently. The urge is still there, but it no longer feels like authority. It feels like noise. And that is a dangerous shift for your old self. Because once desire loses control over you, discipline takes its place. This is where you must understand something critical. Your life is not shaped by intensity. It is shaped by direction under repetition. Anyone can act strong for a day. Few can stay aligned when nothing is pushing them except internal structure. And now that structure is being built inside you. But it will be tested, not by failure, but by ease. Because ease is more dangerous than struggle. Struggle forces awareness. Ease creates blindness. And in moments of comfort, the mind begins to negotiate again. It tells you that you are already improving, that you deserve a break, that consistency can be loosened without consequence. But every loosening has a cost. Not immediately visible, but accumulated. Slowly, quietly. Until one day you realize you are back where you started, wondering how it happened again. This is why discipline is not about perfection. It is about refusal. Refusal to let small compromises rewrite your direction. Because identity does not collapse in one decision. It erodes through permission. And now you're at the stage where every permission matters. You begin to see time differently. Not as something you have, but something you are spending. Every hour either strengthens your future or weakens it. There is no neutral ground anymore. You are either reinforcing control or reinforcing chaos. And this realization changes your behavior in ways motivation never could. You stop waiting for the right mood. You stop expecting energy to lead you. Instead, you begin to move first and let action generate momentum. And momentum is dangerous. Because once momentum builds, hesitation loses power. You notice your focus sharpening without effort. Your tolerance for distraction decreases naturally. Things that once consumed your attention now feel unnecessary. You are not forcing discipline anymore. You are becoming incompatible with distraction. That is the beginning of the machine state. Not emotion, not hype. Structure that runs regardless of mood. And this is where most people fail again. Because they mistake progress for completion. They think reaching this level means the struggle is over. But in reality, this is where the real construction begins. Because now you are not fighting to start, you are fighting to sustain. And sustainability is where greatness is built or destroyed. Every day becomes a silent test, not of ability, but of consistency under no external reward. And the reward delay is where most people break. The mind wants immediate feedback. It wants proof that effort is working. But transformation does not respond instantly. It responds cumulatively, like pressure building under silence. And if you stay with it long enough, something profound happens. You stop needing validation from results, because the process itself becomes proof. Your identity is no longer dependent on outcomes. It is anchored in execution. This is the shift that separates temporary change from permanent transformation. And once it happens, your standards rise without effort. What you once tolerated now feels unacceptable. What you once delayed now feels urgent. What you once avoided now feels normal to face. You are no longer negotiating with your future. You are building it in real time. And slowly, the version of you that used to hesitate begins to fade. Not because you destroyed it violently, but because you stopped feeding it. And anything not fed consistently disappears. What remains is something different, something stable, something sharp. A system that does not depend on emotion, but on structure. A version of you that does not ask whether to act, but simply acts. And at that point, the question is no longer whether you can change. It becomes whether you can stop the momentum you have created. And the answer starts to feel obvious. And the moment you start questioning whether you can even stop this momentum, something deeper locks in inside you. Because now you are no longer relying on motivation to carry you forward. You are being carried by your own consistency. But here is what most people do not prepare for. When you begin to change for real, the world does not immediately celebrate it. It tests it, quietly, repeatedly. in ways that feel almost invisible at first. Old habits do not disappear politely. They return in disguised forms. A sudden urge to relax. A convincing thought that you have done enough. A memory of your old comfort calling you back like it never left. And in those moments, everything depends on what you choose without anyone watching. This is where identity either strengthens or collapses. Because real transformation is not proven in progress, it is proven in pressure. And pressure always arrives when consistency starts to become your nature. That is when distractions become more persuasive, not less. That is when comfort starts sounding logical again. But you are not the same person that comfort used to control. Something inside you has already shifted beyond negotiation. You are no longer reacting to life the way you used to. You are observing it, filtering it, choosing what deserves your attention instead of surrendering it. And this creates a silent separation between you and the version of you that used to drift through days without direction. That old version still exists in memory, but it no longer leads your decisions. It becomes background noise, a reminder of what happens without structure. And that reminder becomes fuel, because now you understand something most people never fully grasp. You are not fighting the world, you are fighting fragmentation. Every distraction pulls you into pieces. Every disciplined action brings you back into one unit, one identity, one direction. And once you experience that alignment, even briefly, chaos starts to feel expensive. You begin to protect your focus the way others protect comfort. You become selective with your energy. You stop engaging with anything that does not move you forward or strengthen your internal structure. Not out of restriction, but out of clarity, and clarity changes everything. Because when your mind is no longer scattered, your actions become inevitable. You stop debating what to do next. You already know. The delay disappears, the hesitation weakens, and execution becomes the default response. At this stage, people around you may not fully understand what has changed. They may see consistency, they may see calmness, they may even see distance. But what they are actually witnessing is alignment, a system that no longer leaks energy. And the more stable you become, the more life begins to respond differently. Not because the world is rewarding you, but because you are no longer creating friction with it. You are moving with direction instead of resistance. But there is another layer few reach. The stage where discipline stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like identity protection. Because you realize something powerful. If you break consistency now, you are not losing a habit. You are weakening a system that took everything inside you to build. That realization makes you more careful, not fearful, intentional. And intention replaces emotion. You start operating from a quieter place, less noise in your mind, less urgency in your thoughts, more precision in your actions. And over time, that precision compounds into something that looks almost effortless from the outside. But it was never effortless. It was built through repetition when no reward was visible. And now you are standing in a space where your future is no longer uncertain. It is being constructed in real time through your daily choices. Every action is laying another layer. Every refusal to quit is strengthening the structure beneath you. And slowly, something irreversible happens. You stop identifying as someone trying to become disciplined. You become discipline itself in motion. Not rigid, not forced, but stable, unshakable in direction. The noise around you still exists. The distractions still exist. The old patterns still exist somewhere in memory, but they no longer define your path. Because you are no longer shaped by what pulls you. You are shaped by what you consistently choose. And at this point, the question that once felt heavy no longer has power over you. It is no longer about whether you can become unstoppable. It is about the fact that you already started becoming it the moment you refuse to return to who you were. And the moment that truth settles inside you, something irreversible begins to happen. You stop chasing change as an idea and start living it as a condition you can't escape anymore. Because once you've seen your own potential clearly, returning to blindness becomes impossible. But this is where the real pressure begins, not from the world, from you. Because now there is no excuse powerful enough to silence what you already know. You know what you are capable of. You know what you have avoided. You know exactly where your energy has been leaking. And that knowledge does not disappear. It stays. It builds. It presses on your decisions every single day. This is the hidden weight of awareness. It does not let you drift peacefully anymore. It forces direction. And you will feel it most in the quiet moments. When nothing is demanding your attention. When you are alone with your thoughts. That is when the contrast becomes loud. The difference between what you are doing and what you could be doing becomes almost unbearable. And in that space, two versions of you will appear. One version asks for delay. It tries to protect comfort. It tries to make excuses sound reasonable. It whispers that tomorrow is safer. And the other version does not speak loudly. It does not argue. It simply stands there, shaped by everything you have already experienced in discipline. It carries evidence instead of emotion. It does not ask for belief. It demands action. Every time you choose between them, something inside you is being rewritten. And this is why the stakes are no longer small. Because you are not just building habits anymore. You are building a direction that will either carry you forward or quietly collapse over time, depending on what you repeat when no one is watching. Most people think failure happens in big moments, but the truth is far more subtle. Failure is just repetition of small decisions that slowly shift your identity without announcing it. And success is the same thing in reverse. That is why your attention is no longer just attention. It is currency. Every second you give away without intention is a piece of your future being traded for temporary relief. And once you see that clearly, even comfort starts to feel expensive. This is the stage where discipline becomes protection. Not punishment, protection. Because you begin to realize that every time you stay aligned with your structure, you are not just doing something productive, you are preventing collapse. You are maintaining a system that only survives through consistency. And the more you protect it, the stronger it becomes. Something else begins to shift too. Your tolerance for your old self starts to disappear. Not out of hatred, but out of clarity. You can see what that version of you produces. You can see where it leads. And you no longer want to revisit that outcome. So decisions become faster, cleaner, less emotional, more grounded in identity than impulse. And in this state, even struggle changes meaning. It stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like confirmation. Confirmation that you are still inside the process that most people quit too early. Because quitting does not feel like quitting in the moment. It feels like relief. And that is what makes it dangerous. Relief without direction always becomes regret later. But you are no longer operating from relief. You are operating from structure. And structure does something powerful over time. It removes negotiation. It removes internal debate. It removes the space where excuses used to grow. You stop asking whether you should act. You already know. And that certainty is what changes everything. Because uncertainty drains energy. Certainty directs it. Now your energy is no longer scattered between options. It is concentrated, focused, moving in one direction repeatedly until momentum becomes undeniable. And when momentum reaches that point, something new emerges. Not effort, not motivation, but inevitability. You are no longer hoping for change. You are generating it through repetition that no longer depends on how you feel. And this is the point where transformation stops feeling like something you are trying to achieve and starts feeling like something that is already happening through you. Because you are no longer the person reacting to life. You are the system shaping it.